I have something to say about baseball.
Okay.
Well, the biggest baseball story right now is the fact that Joe Torre of the New York Yankees, who's been their manager for the last 12 years, is going to be fired. Now, normally that's not a very big story because people get fired and hired all the time in sports, and that's not such a big story. But it is and it's also not a big story in the sense that he hasn't made it to the World Series for like 3 or 4 years. In fact, for the last couple of years, he hasn't even made it out of the first series, the first playoff series. So that's not unusual. What was unusual this weekend was that George Steinbrenner, who was the owner of the New York Yankees, George is this guy who was basically a bully. And 30 years ago, when he was in his prime, he had nothing nice to say about anybody. What he would do is he would wine and dine free agents and everything, take them to the nicest places, say the nicest things to them, sign them for way too much money. And then when they didn't perform according to expectations, he would say terrible things in the press, apropos of, just to be nasty. And this, of course, has endeared him to many New Yorkers, not just New York Yankee fans. The newspapers initially said, oh, it's a terrible thing. It's a terrible thing for George Steinbrenner to be saying all this stuff before the playoff series, that Joe Torre should be fired and everything else if he doesn't make it out of the series. It puts a lot of pressure on the guy, for one thing. Makes the team play really tight, that sort of idea. So I think they had a point there. And then today there was another column by Harvey Araton of the New York Times where he said, well, maybe Joe Torre really should be fired anyway. It's been a while. He's playing with older players and a new young team also. It's kind of a mix, and maybe he's not right for it and all this other stuff, and he hasn't delivered as promised. But the little detail that came across through the whole week for me, which was really interesting, was that Joe Torre is paid $7 million. He was paid and so to me, George Steinbrenner has a point, right? If he's the best paid manager in baseball, he's being paid $7 million. You'd think he would do a bit better, except everybody wrote off the Yankees this year. This is July. There are 14 games behind the Boston Red Sox, and they managed to come within 2 games of taking the division. They become the wild card team. So I think there's a little bit of managing going on there. Don't you agree? This is the thing. He had signed this contract 2 or 3 years ago as an extension of a previous contract. So he's probably been making between $6 and $7 million the last 3 years. So he's made $18 to $21 million. And you figure with taxes being what they are, and of course in New York you're triple taxed. In New Jersey you're quadruple taxed because you're from New Jersey. But basically the way it works is you get to keep half of it, yes? So let's say he made $18 to $21 million. He made anywhere between $9 and $10.5 million in the bank over the last 3 years. So it's really hard to feel sorry for him in that sense, if you know what I mean. This is the thing. He's lasted longer than anybody else with George Steinbrenner. He's handled all of George's insults. He's handled all kinds of, egomaniacal players who say stupid things in the press. He's really tolerated a lot of very, very impatient sorts of journalists and everything else. And I think, that's probably why he's lasted as long as he has. And I'm thinking back, this is the thing that's how expectation works in very peculiar ways. I wonder, would Joe Torre be still managing even right now in order to be, probably as we speak he's being fired officially, but let's just say, would he have even lasted up until this year if the Yankees had won that World Series back in 2001 and they were playing the 7th game against the Arizona Diamondbacks? Let's rewind that. Let's say that Mario doesn't throw that terrible pitch that he did. And let's say that what's his name, Gonzalez, didn't make that huge hit and knock the winning run in. And all pandemonium breaks loose in Arizona, right? Arizona, remember, was this team that was built even worse than the Yankees. Joe Caldangelo, whatever his name was, I can't think of his name. He was then the president of the club, and he basically signed every expensive free agent that he could get because he wanted to win now. That's what the owner wanted. And that's what he got, right? Well, let's just look at that just a little bit here. Let's say that Joe Torre had won that World Series. Okay, he would have had his 5th World Series, and everybody would have said, okay, great. Do you think that he really seriously would have lasted until now? Do you think that after having so much success, by that point it would have been like 5 World Series in 7 years or something like that, some incredible sort of run. And let's say he made the playoffs but didn't get to the World Series, and made the playoffs and lost the World Series, and made the playoffs but didn't get past the first round. I don't think he would have been I don't think he would have been manager this year. So actually, by losing that World Series in a peculiar way and having everybody hope and expect that at some time over the next 3 or 4 or 5, actually 2001 is 6 years ago, right? So over the next 6 years, he would have won 1 World Series. Think of all the millions of dollars he would have lost. Anyway, this is the thing about Alex Rodriguez, who was one of Joe Torre's great players. Alex Rodriguez, 7, 8 years ago, signed the most lucrative contract in professional sports. He gets paid $25 million a year. Yes, true. He gets paid $25 million a year. You laugh, but it's true. You know, he was playing for the Seattle Mariners. And the Seattle Mariners made him an offer, $4 million a year, or something like that, $5 million a year. That's what they could afford. Maybe it even went up to $10 million. But his agent said, no, 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 no. We have to have $25 million a year. So he's signed by the Texas Rangers. The owner of the Texas Rangers, whose name escapes me, probably his name will live in infamy, signed him to this contract for $25 million. The problem was, in paying Alex Rodriguez $25 million, he couldn't sign anybody else. So you had Alex Rodriguez having these amazing seasons, and the Texas Rangers went nowhere. In fact, one year, he had one of these career years, and the Texas Rangers were in absolute last place of their division. I kid you not. At which point the owner, again whose name escapes me, he was the successor to George W., who used to own the Rangers. The owner of the Rangers had to get rid of Alex Rodriguez because he had to have a team that could play. Nobody was coming to see any of the games because they were always in last place. And Alex Rodriguez is a handsome guy, he's a stud, he's a great hitter, but you can't just watch one baseball player. So they organized this whole big trade with the Boston Red Sox. This is how baseball agents are just really, 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 really useful, right? Baseball agents are supposed to get the most for their clients, but this particular agent, whose name I believe is Scott Boras or something like that, I swear to God, that's his name, B-O-R-A-S, Scott Boras. He had set up this contract with the Rangers that made it very, very difficult for them to actually trade him to Boston because Boston was insisting that well, this is what happened. Boston was basically trying to get Alex to take just a little bit less than $25 million because they had a few other players that they wanted to pay. This is the story. They had other people they were paying, and it would have been just a teensy-weensy bit of a problem if he made that much more than everybody else. So they negotiated this contract with him where but the problem was, and this is also the problem with the union, that you can't actually agree to be paid less because that sort of distorts the value of other contracts around the league. This is how it works. So they tried to work this thing out where they were pretending like he was getting less for sort of appearance money or something having to do with royalties on certain kinds of uniforms and stuff that they sell in the stands, you know, to fans and stuff. And the commissioner of baseball, Bud Selig, said, "No, no, no, you can't do that. We can't do that." And the head of the players' union, who's a guy named Bill Fair or something like that. There's another great name, Bill Fair, F-E-H-R. Try that on for size, F-E-H-R. Said, "No, no, no, we can't do that. It's a violation of the player's contract, blah, blah, blah." And so at the last minute, the Red Sox couldn't trade for him. So the Yankees got interested in him. And the Yankees traded this really great player named Alex Soriano, who was this young second baseman, only in his second or third year. Had a few errors to his credit, to be sure, but was quite a hitter. And they traded him straight up to, this is the amazing thing about George Steinbrenner. They traded this guy to the Rangers to pick up this other player, and they got the Texas Rangers to pay something like $10 million of his salary. This is true. Up through all the years that he's been with the Yankees, which has been 3 or 4 seasons, Alex Rodriguez has had $10 million of his salary still paid by the owner of the Texas Rangers. Go figure that one out. This is part of the ongoing development of Chico Rose.